Hello and welcome back to Week 1, Unit 6 of our OpenSAP course Touch IoT with SAP Leonardo. Today we're going to go through some very exciting new technologies and gadgets, and we'll explore how they're impacting the IoT industry. Before we get started, I want to take a step back and to think about how many technologies, which were quite revolutionary in their time, we now take for granted. Just think about how much smartphones have changed the way we live and work. It used to be that when people were out of the office, they were gone because a phone was tied to a place, not to a person. Now we have global nomads building new businesses straight from their phones. And to think that smartphones have been around for nearly a decade, we now may be in the midst of another revolution happening because of new technologies like blockchain and drones. Okay, so let's get started with the first technology trend for today. Blockchain. A hot topic around the world these days, but to be honest, also one of the most misunderstood technologies of our time. Yet it shouldn't be. The concept is fairly simple once you get your head around. And instead of going first through its dry theory, let's try to understand the technology with a simple example before we catch up later with its exact definition, the security implications, and its relationship with IoT. Okay, here we go. Our example is all about money transfer between two parties. Here in this example, we have Bob and myself, Lisa. Let's say Bob owes me $50. Before blockchain, Bob only had the option of either giving the $50 to me in cash or using a trusted third party like his bank. The trusted party, which acts like a middleman, performs a range of important tasks that help build trust into the transactional process. It identifies myself as a person, including my bank account, and also checks if Bob has enough money in his account. After both of these are checked, the bank moves money into my account. However, this process can take multiple days, especially if the banks are in different countries. And even worse, the bank often takes a fee. So in this case, let's say I only receive $49. Okay, so I hope this simple concept is clear. So let's bring blockchain into the picture. With the new technology of blockchain, it is possible to transfer money, 1, without a trusted third party like a bank, 2, faster than 3 days, actually immediately. By comparison, think about how long an international transfer can take. And 3, it is also cheaper as compared to the fee that third party collects. Now you might ask yourself, how? Well, this brings me back to Bitcoin. Some of you might have heard of Bitcoin before, or maybe have even used it. Bitcoin claims to be the world's first decentralized currency. But what exactly is Bitcoin? A Bitcoin, or BTC for short, is a digital coin you can send through the internet, or in other words, a little digital piece of code that has monetary value associated with it. Confused? Well, think about it like this. A $1 bill. You know that it's a simple piece of paper with a number on it and some fancy pictures saying that it has a monetary value of $1. It in fact only has value because we say it does. Bitcoins are the same way. They have worth because people agree that they do and want to trade real goods and services for them. Now you might ask yourself, how much is a Bitcoin worth compared to, let's say, a US dollar? Well, when we recorded this video, Bitcoin was worth a bit over $1,200 US. Bitcoin has grown drastically over the years and is involved in an average of 230,000 transactions a day. And the more popular Bitcoin gets, the more value is going to be placed on each individual Bitcoin. But I haven't mentioned the technology behind Bitcoin. Well, as you might have guessed, the Bitcoin application was developed using blockchain technology. Often Bitcoin is confused with blockchain. Think about it like this. Blockchain is to Bitcoin what the internet is to email. A big electronic system on top of which you can build applications. Currency, or Bitcoin in this case, is just one application or use of blockchain. In fact, Bitcoin is only one of about 700 applications that use blockchain technology as a base. And coming back to our example from before, you can also transfer money from person to person, like Bob trying to transfer money to me. So let's understand more how it works by continuing this example. If you remember, we had Bob trying to transfer money to me. However, this time without a middleman, like a bank. This time Bob uses a Bitcoin application, which, how we just learned, works thanks to blockchain technology. Okay, Bob's first step is to log into the application with, for example, his phone. And just like with online banking, he types in the amount of money he wants to transfer. And of course, he also needs to provide my information as a receiver. To pay me, Bob needs two pieces of information: his private key and my public key. These are identities in the system, which are basically a sequence of numbers like a digital signature. Bob gets my public key by scanning a QR code from my phone or by having me email him the payment address, a string of seemingly random numbers and letters. He receives a notification that the transaction is pending. Everything which happens now happens behind the scenes. Bob's transaction gets bundled up with other pending transactions, which have occurred in a time window of approximately 10 minutes, into a new transaction block, which again gets a new random number, also called a cryptographic hash function. Those make it hard to glean anything interesting or useful about the transaction, and therefore make it secure. The app then alerts a group of people called Bitcoin miners around the world about the new block of pending transaction. Those miners, by the way, can be people like you and me who own a computer with a lot of computing power. The job of those miners is to verify if transactions are legitimate. The miners first verify that Bob is really Bob and that he has enough bitcoins to make the payment. The miners, through using their computers, do this by completing complex cryptographic hash function puzzles. As soon as the first miner solved the cryptographic problem, the discovery is announced to the rest of the network. And the winning miner gets rewarded with bitcoins, and the new block is added to the front of the blockchain. Each block joins the prior block, so a change is made, the blockchain. And of course, also myself and Bob get a message that I have received the bitcoins in my Bitcoin wallet. This process normally only takes 10 minutes, which is super quick. Again, especially when you think about how long it can take to transfer money internationally between different banks. Okay, so that was a lot of information. Let's sum up with the 4 most important things you should know about this blockchain technology. A blockchain is decentralized. This means it is on the hard drives and laptops of the whole network. A blockchain is also public, so everyone can look into the blockchain. And it is time-stamped. So whenever there is a transaction, whenever there is a change, the date and time of the transaction or change are recorded. And lastly, blockchains are persistent. As long as all of the people and computers in the blockchain keep doing what they were doing, the blockchain, in theory, could last forever. Next, what I want to talk about is how secure is a blockchain. In order to understand the security aspect of a blockchain, we need to understand how each block builds upon each other. So let's say in this case we have a blockchain which is only 3 blocks long. As you can see on the slide, block 2 has information from block 1 and block 3 has information from block 1 and 2 embedded. They are all linked to each other, like a chain. Okay, after understanding this, let's zoom out a bit and imagine a blockchain like you see here on the slide. Let's say all the miners are working on the yellow block, number 27. But someone tries to alter a transaction in the red block, number 19. In order to do so, he'd have to make changes and redo all the computations for all the blocks, 19 to 26, and do the yellow block. That is 9 blocks of expensive computing. What's worse, the miner would have to do it all before someone else in the Bitcoin network finishes just 1 block, the yellow one. The reason why it would be so difficult ties back to the last slide, where I explained how each block builds upon each other, and therefore each new block bears a history under more work. Okay, lots of information, but don't worry, the hardest part is behind us. However, now that you have a good understanding of this blockchain technology, I want you to think about other industry use cases. Think about situations where 2 parties exchange assets that can be described in a digital form. What people are starting to realize is that you can use blockchain in any situation where you want to publish a record of something that happened at some point in time that is verifiable but is not under the control of any one entity. Think of use cases where you want to have a record of ownership about something. You can now record this in a blockchain. Still sounds abstract? Let's go to some specific examples. First one, medical records. There's the option of keeping your DNA profile and all your medical record history on a blockchain. This allows patients to grant doctors access to their personal information easily, no matter how often you change your doctor. Or think about your school certifications. Instead of hunting them down, you could have them in a blockchain and can grant access to whoever needs to see it. Other examples are photos. This comes in handy when you're recording insurance claims and photos can be proven and relied upon as being authentic. Or how cool would it be next time you're at the grocery store, you could track back the history of, let's say, a can of tuna and know exactly where the fish inside were caught, who certified it, where it was canned, etc. All time-stamped at each step. Blockchain could also dramatically change how real estate transactions work. In real estate, blockchain technology could help solve problems everyone has with this industry, including the title process, land registry, and even escrow. Or imagine a will or testament set up so that it is executed automatically upon the death of its creator. And my last example are licenses. Document renewals could become paperless if they were stored in a blockchain. Actually, the city of Dubai is one of the first cities to utilize blockchain as a foundation to foster economic opportunities. Only by doing this, the government is expected to reduce 114 metric tons of CO2 emissions. Wow! So now you've seen some visionary use cases for blockchain. But how about experiencing blockchain live in action for yourself? We're working to make this work so that at the end of this course, you can get a Touch IoT course certificate issued on a blockchain. We'll share more about this in the upcoming weeks. Okay, so finally, what does this all have to do with our main topic of IoT? Let me also show you here an example, which will demonstrate the power of blockchain technology combined with IoT scenarios. Let's say there is a farm producing milk from their cows and selling it. Before we can buy the milk in the store, multiple carriers are transporting it, first to a warehouse and then later to a store. The milk has to be stored within a certain temperature range, so it doesn't get spoiled. Thanks to IoT, containers can be equipped with sensors to measure the temperature of the milk. All parties involved, be it the farmer, the warehouse, the store, or the carrier company, want to have access to the same temperature data so they can be sure they followed the right requirements. And this is where blockchain angle comes in. Sending sensor data to the blockchain allows all business partners involved to access the same information, and here the important part, without requiring central control. Clever, right? Okay, so I'm sure a lot of you are more familiar with drones than with blockchain. The sales of drones have more than tripled over the last year, reaching around 200 million. The increasing interest in using these aerial devices is one of the best illustrations of how lower prices and the demand for connectivity is driving the Internet of Things. So, but what exactly are drones? The definition says drones are unmanned aircraft systems or an aircraft without a pilot on board that can fly autonomously. Drones have become a household name within the last years. Okay, before I go into more details about drones, let me take you on a little trip over Golden Gate Bridge here in San Francisco from the view of a drone. That was pretty cool, wasn't it? But now let's go into a bit more details and start with different kinds of drones. They can be divided into three main categories. Hobbyists are flying them for recreational purposes because these types can simply be purchased online. Commercial or military drones are very sophisticated, unmanned aircraft systems. The US Army, for instance, uses these commercial drones instead of pilots for some very dangerous missions. And then lastly, the new middle category, which are so-called combination commercial controls. Those drones are sophisticated enough for commercial purposes, but not too complex to mass produce. These drones are helping enterprises for automated tasks in all kinds of industries. Let's look at some examples. Let's start with agriculture. Drones can support farmers, for instance, in the planting process by shooting pods with seeds into the soil. But it doesn't stop here. Built-in sensors in drones can scan the ground and identify which parts of the field are dry and water those, but also assess the crop health, spot bacterial infections, and spray affected crops. Amazing, right? Okay, let's look at some more use cases in different industries. What about logistics? Will we be receiving our mail from drones in the future? Or what about food? Recently, Amazon won a patent for a flying warehouse or fulfillment center that will deploy drones to deliver parcels. Basically, the plan for Amazon is to have an airship of some sort hovering at an altitude of around 45,000 feet, stocked with lots of products. When an order is placed, a drone will fly down from the floating fulfillment center and deliver the item within only 10 minutes. The whole idea is clearly years away from actually seeing the light of day. Another example is Domino's Pizza in New Zealand. The company has successfully implemented a flying drone that transports pizza. But there's also a very interesting use case in emergency medicine, where the plan is to use cargo drones to deliver urgent supplies like blood and organ transplants to areas which are hard to reach. Okay, but now you might ask yourself, what do drones have to do with our main topic of IoT? I'll show you. First of all, for drones to function, they have sensors embedded. We need to understand that drones are mission carriers, and different drones carry different missions. Thus, different system integrators are designed to meet different requirements. However, drones usually carry 5 types of typical sensors, which are listed here. They are needed, for instance, to stabilize the drone, providing angular motion, prevent the drone from spinning around, and to track and locate the drone. But have in mind that these sensor types are only examples. We are only beginning to learn and explore what is possible with drones. They are deployable to different locations, are capable of carrying flexible payloads, can be reprogrammed in mission, and are able to measure just about anything without any geographic constraints. In fact, many drone enthusiasts are starting to call drones the future of IoT, as drones are also connected devices and their data can be accessible through the internet, phone, and cloud. The possibilities of what drones can do in the near future are very exciting and fascinating. And we are very curious to see how drones will evolve and what they might enable us to do. Okay, you made it to the end of this unit, so let's quickly do a recap of what we've learned. First of all, we talked about blockchain, which is again a decentralized database that can keep records of all kinds of digital transactions. And then we talked about drones, which are unmanned aircrafts that can fly autonomously. Next, we have an exciting guest speaker from IDC who will be talking about IoT and the future of business. Thanks everyone for watching. I'll see you soon.